All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Elaine Swain with Mental Health America of Spartanburg County, and you are joining us for our September installment of our educational series. And we've got some great information today. We have the founder of CoverMyMentalHealth.org, Joe Feldman, and we also have my friend Lakeisha McCutcheon from the Spartanburg County Foundation. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So we'll start off first by introducing Lakeisha. She is the Community Engagement Officer, like I said, at the Spartanburg County Foundation. And she's just going to give us a little bit of a message from the foundation. So, Lakeisha, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. And the purpose of me being here today is just to share the foundation's commitment to supporting those who work to improve mental health outcomes in our community. And to share a little bit about the Spartanburg County Foundation, just want you all to know that we're committed to improving the lives of Spartanburg County residents by promoting philanthropy, encouraging community engagement, and responding to our community needs. We are a charitable nonprofit organization that works with individuals, families, and businesses, as well as nonprofits to distribute philanthropic dollars, share the knowledge about our community needs, and support the nonprofit sector through grants and training opportunities. Mental health is important to the foundation because it's a key in improving the quality of life for all Spartanburg County residents. Through grant making and curated exhibits at the foundation, at our Center for Philanthropy, we have worked to raise awareness and support improved mental health outcomes in our community. We sponsored this event today, this Lunch and Learn, this year, just because we believe that education and access to mental health is important for our community and to reach for members of our community to reach its fullest potential. We invite you to visit our website at Spartanburg County Foundation, Center of Philanthropy, and to visit us at 431 East Kennedy Street, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5, to learn more about the work that we do and the opportunities for involvement here at the foundation. Elaine, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Lakeisha. And I can definitely echo that not only for you all sponsoring us today as a mental health nonprofit, but I've been fortunate to attend a lot of the events that you put on for the community. And you're just a wonderful partner to us and to me personally. And so thank you so much for being here today, giving our viewers and our listeners a little bit more about what they can expect from their county foundation and knowing that in 2026 and beyond, there'll probably be even more that you will offer. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And now I'll go ahead. I have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Joe Feldman. He is our speaker today. And additionally, he is the Cover My Mental Health president and founder. He began advocating for access to mental health care after overcoming denials for his adolescents' residential care, including with a successful federal lawsuit. Mr. Feldman established Cover My Mental Health based on his own success overcoming insurance obstacles with input from leading litigators, appeals experts, clinicians, insurance regulators, and former insurance industry insiders. His advocacy work has included policy-driven discussions with legislators and regulators, a board role with the Kennedy Forum, Illinois, presentations to parent groups, and publication of actionable guidance such as a 2021 article in the Journal of Psychiatric Practice on medical necessity letters. Mr. Feldman also serves on the board of Thresholds, a Chicago-based firm providing support to those living with mental illness, and Acadian Kitchens, a for-profit seasonings business in Louisiana. So if that doesn't tell you enough of why we invited him on today and why we are so happy to have him, I know that his presentation will. So Mr. Feldman, thank you for joining us. We were just discussing that you're starting to see the effects of fall in Illinois, which we said is a little bit foreign to those of us who live in the South now, but we're just so happy to have you with us here today, and I will turn it over to you.
Sounds great, Elaine. Thanks so much for your introduction, and really it's a pleasure to be here. As Elaine mentioned, I got involved in advocacy based on a story that begins in a way that none of you would be surprised to hear, which is that my family encountered insurance obstacles, and it was through that experience that I learned a lot about how challenging it can be and how discouraging it can be. And Cover My Mental Health is all about providing resources to encourage patients and their families and clinicians to overcome insurance obstacles. So let's get started. Great. So when we buy health insurance or end up with health insurance through our employers, we have some very basic expectations about what that means for ourselves and for our families. We expect that the insurance company is going to provide us with access to clinicians who are appropriate. We'll talk a little bit about what appropriate means, but that's, I'll say, part of the deal. And we also expect that those clinicians are going to be competent to determine what sort of care we need, and that their determination about what care we need is going to be covered by insurance, because after all, they are part of the extended team, I'll say, of the insurance company. And so, of course, they should be competent to make those decisions. And as those clinicians work with us or with a family member to provide us care through a course of treatment, we expect that the insurance company is going to follow along and continue to pay for those claims. And then last, we expect that claims are going to be paid on a timely basis. We certainly understand that deductibles and copays are part of the contract, but otherwise we expect that that insurance companies are going to hold up their end of the bargain, and if there are any disputes along the way, that those disputes will be resolved in a way that's has the patient first and foremost in mind. So what we know is that it doesn't always work that way. And on account of that, Covering My Mental Health exists to help patients, families, and clinicians to navigate the unfortunate situations when our expectations, our very reasonable expectations, aren't met. So what I want to spend time talking about this morning or this afternoon are some of the resources that we offer to provide that encouragement and that immediately actionable resource to help overcome insurance obstacles. And I'll be sure to leave time at the end for questions. And I've provided a copy of the presentation to Elaine, and she's going to distribute those as she sees fit afterwards. And I understand that the presentation will also be recorded and available later. So, as I mentioned, the first and foremost thing that we try to focus on is providing encouragement. When I first got started with Cover My Mental Health, I looked out in the, I'll say, in the marketplace of resources to help people deal with insurance obstacles. And one of the things that I saw immediately is that they were all pretty discouraging. They, I'll say, generally had a theme of the law is on your side and how to write a better appeal. And what I know from my own experience is that knowing that the law is on your side is not very encouraging, because you run into a problem with not being able to find a clinician or getting a denial of some sort. If the law was working, you wouldn't be facing those. And it's not so clear what you're supposed to do with the information that the law is on your side. And it turns out that filing an appeal, which is typically the only course of action that you'll find in an insurance policy when it comes to resolving disputes, it turns out that filing an appeal is very, very rarely the right place to start. It might be a place that you end up, but there are many steps that you can take ahead of that. And appeals are legalistic, they are time consuming, and as much as they can certainly be successful, it can be really challenging to look at to look down the road at what it takes to file an appeal and feel like you want to take that on. So encouragement is, I'll say, the number one thing that we think about. Our website describes a number of steps for getting started. We have a page on tips, and I'll highlight a couple of those in a second. We also then provide a series of buttons on the homepage that describe obstacles that are pretty typical for people to encounter, like not being able to find a clinician in their network, or getting denied for not medically necessary, which I'll talk about some more. And we talk about how to respond to the insurer when those issues happen, and how to take steps to push back and hopefully overcome those. And then finally, we'll we offer along the way information about how to access help from government, either state or federal government, or from elected officials, as well as additional steps that you can take if at first you don't succeed. So as much as I'd like to guarantee that we will help you resolve an insurance issue every single time and right away, I know that's not realistic. What I think we do is level the playing field between an individual and the insurance company. So here's a screenshot. I'll show just a few of these from the website of our section on tips for success. And I want to just touch on two of them quickly. The first is tips for talking to an insurance company customer service rep. So among the tips that we provide are these. First and foremost is take notes. It's really important to write down what the conversation is about, who you had the conversation with. I always like to write down their ID number. I found that helps to be able to clarify exactly who you spoke with and what they said. And then I think maybe even more importantly is to not discuss any clinical issues with a customer service rep. And we have a short video on the website that I'll say takes a hopefully fun, if you're open to that, a fun look at a conversation between a customer service rep and an individual, where the customer service rep is poking around about clinical matters that are really just not appropriate for a customer service rep. The headline there is, let's let the clinicians take care of all that. The second and last tip I want to touch on this page is the second one, support from a friend or family member. So when you or your family are in the middle of a crisis related to mental health or substance use disorder, I'll say the thing that you're not looking forward to is another challenge on your plate with an insurance company that's standing in the way of care. And it could be that something that could be helpful is authorizing a friend or a family member who you trust and who is able to step in and deal with an insurance company alongside you. And every insurance company has a page on their website where you can download an authorization form where you can authorize someone to act for you. And it could be for the basics of asking about the status of claims or payment information, or did they receive a document that you sent, that you can have someone step in and act for you. And that could be a little bit of pressure that comes off. I certainly know when our family has been dealing with challenges related to either of our kids, and both of our kids have had their challenges in this regard. Folks will say, hey, can we bring you dinner? Can we drive a carpool for you? It could be that the answer to that question is, for the right person, could you help me with some of this insurance mess and maybe make a couple of phone calls for me, and I'm going to authorize you to act alongside me. So that's a tip that could be quite valuable. As I'll say, interestingly, as I've shared these tips with clinicians, that tip turns out to be the one that they are fascinated with. And I've had literally dozens of clinicians tell me that that's an incredibly valuable bit of information that they can share with their patients who are already dealing with a lot of challenges and could use a little relief. When it comes to insurance companies doing, I'll say, the very basic job that they are expected to do, it's to provide you with access to the right clinicians. And an appropriate clinician, I think of as having three characteristics. One is that they have the right expertise. So if you're looking for help with, let's say, anxiety and depression, you want someone who is capable of helping you there. If it's for an eating disorder, then someone with that expertise. With substance use disorder, with that expertise. It's very reasonable to expect that sort of competence. And then I'll say at a very practical level, you expect the network to include a clinician who is close to you. And close could be measured in time or miles. And some states and some health policies specify exactly what commitment there should be about close. Could be within 20 minutes or within 10 miles or some other number. I don't really worry so much about exactly what any individual state or policy might say. I think people know what close is, and if you're looking in a directory, you should be able to find someone who's close to you that has the right expertise. And then you should be able to get an appointment with that person soon. And again, soon is something where there might be certain identified metrics, but I think soon is also something that you'll know what's right for you. Emergency means today. I'll say a true medical emergency. And otherwise, it could be that a week or maybe even 2 weeks is appropriate. But I think we know that 9 months or a year or sometime next year is just not, that's just not soon. And we expect the insurer is going to provide us a directory that we can use to be able to do our homework and find a clinician. So one of the resources that can be downloaded from our website, and like I think I may have mentioned, all of the resources on our website are accessible at no cost. This worksheet is potentially helpful in documenting that you've gone to the network directory and you've identified clinicians who seem to have the right expertise and seem to be close to you to see if you can schedule an appointment. And the whole idea of this worksheet is essentially to show your work. So the insurance company did their job, and it's a very reasonable expectation that as a member in an insurance network that you'll do your job. They're not going to find a clinician for you from step one. They're going to provide you with a directory that you can use to take that action yourself. And so this is an opportunity for you to write down who you tried to contact and what was the result. And if it turns out these are clinicians that are no longer in the network, or they're not taking new patients, or actually they're not eating disorder specialists after all, even though the box was checked that they were, or they offer you an appointment about Thursday next summer, that's a way for you to document to your insurance company to go back to them and say, so I did my job, and I want to send you my worksheet that shows that I have done my job, and now it's your turn to provide me with access to a clinician in the network or a waiver so that I can find a clinician outside my network who you will treat from a financial standpoint as if they were in network, so that I'm not penalized for you not having enough clinicians in your network to serve me. So that's the first of the, I'll say, expectations that we talked about earlier in some of the support we provide. So when it comes to approval of claims for care, our expectation, if we were to stop and think about it, which by the way, we probably don't, our expectation is that we're just not going to be surprised that the clinician we're working with says, hey, this is a medication that you need, or this is a frequency of therapy, or this is some particular treatment protocol. We expect that that's what the insurance company is going to cover. And we expect that as the clinician works with us or with a family member through the course of our treatment, that those ongoing decisions about treatment are going to lead to care that is covered by our insurance policy. We expect that the competence is going to, of the clinician is going to find its way through to covered claims. So why does that not happen all the time? Well, if you were to look in your health insurance policy, and one of the tips that I didn't mention, but I'll mention it now, is to get a copy of the complete insurance policy. So not just the summary, which is what you might see during, let's say, open enrollment or what you might find on the website, but the complete policy, just to have it available and to be able to refer to it if that's helpful. That document is probably between 100 and 300 pages long. And somewhere in that long policy, you will find the phrase, almost assuredly, we will pay for claims that are medically necessary. Well, it turns out that medical necessity is a legal term, because it's in the contract, but it's not a clinical term. last summer, I was having dinner with Dr. Andrew Gerber. He's a psychiatrist who runs the Silver Hill Hospital in New Canaan, Connecticut. And he's a very active clinician and advocate for access to care and overcoming insurance obstacles. And what Andrew said to me, I thought was just the clearest way that you could think about it. He said, so medical necessity is a legal standard that insurance companies point to when they decide whether or not they're going to pay for a claim. And generally accepted standards are what clinicians are taught in their training. He said, so clinicians are taught, do no harm, the Hippocratic Oath, it's, I think, roughly 2,500 years old. And clinicians are taught to use safe and effective care. That's a phrase that we are quite familiar with just from going to the pharmacy. And generally accepted standards, that's what clinicians are taught. And so when you have a gap between generally accepted standards, which is what clinicians are taught, and medical necessity, a legal term, when there's any space between those, you've got room for insurance company mischief. And they're saying, hey, this care is not medically necessary, and getting into, I'll say, a dispute with the clinician who is not taught about this legal standard. So how do we take the space out from between medical necessity and generally accepted standards? So in the opening, Elaine mentioned that I was the author of, or lead author of an article in the Journal of Psychiatric Practice. The article was about something called a medical necessity letter. And I'll talk on the next slide about exactly what that is. But the idea is for a clinician to put in writing their perspective on generally accepted standards applied to the patient, to be able to take all the space out from between what an insurance company would say is medically necessary and what a clinician has determined is the application of generally accepted standards. So on the website, again, you can find a downloadable document. It's in Word, so it's very easy to edit and for clinicians to use. I've also found that sometimes patients and families can use the document to, I'll say, help the clinician. So not to step in for the clinician, but to prepare some of the document that might be a little bit helpful to get the clinician started. I think the best way to think about this letter is that it's a way of putting in writing a conversation that is just really common sense between a clinician and an insurance company. And the conversation would go something like this. First, I'd like to introduce myself. I'd like to tell you about my training. I'd like to tell you about my clinical practice. And I'd like to talk to you about my experience with this particular patient. So I've been working with this patient for a certain period of time, and I've been able to make some assessments about the clinical status of this patient and the generally accepted standards that are appropriate for this patient's care. I've also had a chance to evaluate the risk of not pursuing treatment in this particular way. And in conclusion, I'd like to say that the following is the appropriate course of treatment that is medically necessary. So that sort of conversation is documented in the template that's available on the website. This template was developed with input from a wide range of clinicians. I would say importantly from a number of litigators who are active in this area, filing lawsuits against insurance companies. And so it has, I'll say, certain references to care that have been determined by litigation are appropriate ways for insurance companies to evaluate the appropriate care. So as much as it's not a form of legal advice, that's for sure, we don't provide individual case or individual situation or any legal advice of any kind. We do rely on the learnings from from past litigation and from past interactions between clinicians and insurance companies. Last fall, I was at a conference. It happened to be a conference with a number of state regulators for health insurance, and I opened up my my email, and there was an article published that morning by ProPublica. You may know ProPublica, or maybe not, but they are an investigative journalism shop. And they've been writing a lot of articles about health insurers behaving badly. And the particular article that I read that morning was about a series of stories related to United Healthcare contacting outpatient therapists, basically to bother them about the frequency and the duration of care for some of their patients. So as soon as I saw that article, I immediately thought, this is an example of an obstacle where medical necessity and generally accepted standards of care are not, are not synonymous, and an insurance company could be getting it wrong. So as much as the template that I showed you on the previous page has all the, I'll say, all the right elements for a medical necessity letter related to frequency and duration of care, I thought a very sharpened and much shorter medical necessity letter template might be helpful to especially outpatient therapists to be able to communicate to their patient's insurance company, basically same messages, right? This is my practice, this is my training, I've been working with this patient for a period of time, and the frequency of care and the duration of care for their recovery is the following. And basically, P.S., thanks very much, I've got this, and please pay the claim. So that's, I'll say, a specific sort of clinical scenario where a medical necessity letter and a purpose-specific template is available on our site. So we recently added to the website a tab with success stories, and I want to just share one of those with you now. This is a situation where a patient who happened to be the sister of a friend of mine, and she has a pretty severe anxiety related to being in a car and to traveling by car. And so I'll say at a certain level, sadly and inevitably, she was in a car accident, and she was injured physically, not so badly, but she did need some care for that. And it really, I'll say, disturbed the underlying anxiety that she had about being in a car. So she was talking to her sister about this, and it was quite upsetting, as you could imagine. And her sister said to her, so by the way, you should check out this website called Cover My Mental Health, and you'll find some information there that might be helpful for you to provide to your clinician so that the clinician can write a letter to the insurance company describing how the car accident exacerbated this anxiety and that you might need some additional appointments on an outpatient basis to get that care covered. And that's exactly what happened. And she downloaded the template. She provided that template letter to her clinician, who used it to write a medical necessity letter that explained the background and, of course, all the other elements that we've talked about, submitted it to the insurance company, and the claims for that care were all paid as the testimonial ends with no questions asked. So that was quite a good success story. There's another excerpt from the success story that you can access from the website or from the PDF after our session today. When it comes to claims getting paid and disputes being resolved, our expectation, again, if we were to stop and think about it, our expectation is really pretty simple. We expect that claims are going to be paid without any surprise. We expect that the dispute resolution that we might have to engage in with the insurance company is going to be resolved with the interest of the patient in mind, either us or a family member. And we also expect that there's not going to be any changes in the level of care that an insurance company asserts is appropriate instead of what our clinician is saying should be right. So again, what we know is it doesn't always work that way. So I just want to highlight and maybe go into a little bit more discussion about some, I'll say maybe more advanced steps, or maybe better described if at first you don't succeed. So I'll talk about I want to talk about these first three: requesting a complete claims file, formal insurer complaint, and constituent services, and then I'll come back to this. So, so it turns out that by law, any of us that have health insurance can make a request to our insurance company that they provide us a copy of the complete claims file. I've done this on multiple occasions when our kids were going through challenges and where our insurance company was, I'll say, misbehaving. It turns out this is part of HIPAA. So HIPAA is the privacy law that we're all exposed to when we go to a clinician, either for the first time or maybe the first time in a given year, and we have to sign a document that says that we recognize that there are certain requirements for how the clinician handles our personal health information, and that we understand they're not going to be using it in a way that's contrary to that law. Well, it turns out that another part of that law that you may not know about is that we can say to our insurance company, please send me a copy of my complete claims file. And the image on the left is a downloadable document in Word on the website that you could use to share with the insurance company. And we have a list there. You can see the bullet points because sometimes all might be unclear for some. And so we identify some of the documents that we want to be sure that they know that we expect will be included in all. What's interesting about these kinds of requests is that, I'll say, certainly from my own experience when I've done this, I've gotten a stack of documents, probably about 500 pages. So almost all of them, almost all of the pages I've seen before. So it'll include a copy of the insurance policy. So that might be, like I said, that could be a few hundred pages. I'll get a copy of every explanation of benefits document that I've ever received already. I'll get a copy of any claims payment that I've received already, any prior authorization documents that I've received, anything else related to the, I'll say, administration of the claim. But what you also get that might be much more valuable when you have a dispute is internal documentation from the insurance company about how they decided about what claims were medically necessary or were not medically necessary. And in both cases that I can think of where we've had disputes with insurance companies and overcome them, the documents that we received from the insurance company related to their decision-making, those documents were incredibly important because it was an open book of what they were up to. And in some cases, in one case in particular, what was really interesting about this file transfer that they made is what was not there. So we had received a denial that a certain claim was not medically necessary. And when I got the documentation, the internal documentation included nothing at all to explain why a not medically necessary determination was made. There was nothing there at all. In fact, the only documentation that came through said that in fact it all was medically necessary. So it was the absence documentation that turned out to be interesting. So this is certainly something that, that can be helpful. And by law, insurance companies have to provide this to you on within 30 days. They're permitted to get an extension for another 30 days. So this may not be the fastest path, but it is certainly one that can be effective when disputes are happening. And I certainly recommend it to folks. This this next step to take, if at first you don't succeed, turns out to be really interesting, and I really wish that I knew about this one before I learned about it. I only learned about it when I was putting the original website together in the spring of 2024, and it's a formal insurer complaint. I learned about it from a friend of mine who used to be the head of a behavioral health unit for each of 3 different insurance companies. So he is one of my, I'll say, former insurance company insiders who's been helpful giving me information about sort of what goes on the other side that might be helpful to individuals trying to deal with obstacles. So our website includes this very simple script of what to say to a customer service rep when, for example, you've provided a document that showed that you looked for an in-network clinician and you couldn't find one and they're not helping, or you've provided a medical necessity letter from a clinician and they're not abiding by it. And the message is very simple. I want to file a formal complaint. Formal complaint is for a quality of care failure. And then you go on to explain, what is the quality of care failure? Is it related to access to a clinician or a denial for medical necessity or some other thing? And then to document that conversation in writing. And once again, there's a Word document template that you can download from our website. So this is not an appeal, and it's also not a regulatory complaint. It's a formal insurer complaint. And what turns out to be interesting about this is that insurers have 2 obligations when it comes to their receipt of formal complaints. And it turns out they don't like either one of these. They are obligated to report formal complaints to their regulatory authority. That could be either at a state or federal level. And they're also obligated to report formal complaints to their accreditation body, which is likely to be either an organization called NCQA or another called URAC, URAC. And they just don't like to do that. And so saying, I'd like to file a formal complaint immediately triggers a different process within the insurance company where they have to keep track of these complaints. And they'd rather that didn't happen. So one of the success stories on our website relates to a clinic that specializes in obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, down in Texas. They had an agreement with an insurance company and a particular patient about how their being out of network was going to be handled in a way that was acceptable to the clinician and the patient and the insurer. But the insurance company wasn't following through. They weren't playing ball. And this particular clinic had sent a representative to a conference, the International OCD Foundation Conference, where I spoke probably about 6 weeks ago. And so they were talking about this insurance company and what the heck are they going to do about it. And someone said, I heard this guy speak at a conference. Why don't we try a formal complaint? And so after all these disappointments, they got on the phone one last time and said to the insurer, okay, so are you going to pay up or not? They said no. And they said, well, in that case, we're going to file a formal complaint. And the insurance company said, well, in that case, we're going to pay. And all the fuss ended. So these formal complaints certainly can work. Another potential resource in the category of, I'll say, phone a friend that might be helpful is to reach out to either a state regulator or a federal regulator. And our website identifies how you can find out who who in the state regulatory organization for your state is the right place to get started, or a phone number where you can contact the Department of Labor, specifically the Employee Benefit Security Administration, which is the part of the federal government that handles health insurance. But I think perhaps even more interesting and maybe more immediately useful is to call constituent services. So what I mean by that is our elected officials, either at a state level or at a federal level, so members of Congress, members of the US Senate, or members of our state Senate or our state legislatures, they almost always have someone in their office who handles what they call constituent services. These are the folks who constituents can call to say, hey, I need help with something related to either a government agency or an organization that's regulated by the government. And health insurance certainly qualifies for that. I was making a presentation last fall at the NAMI Texas annual meeting in El Paso, and I was describing this this particular path, and a woman in the back of the room raised her hand and stood up and said, "I just want to say that this is exactly right, and this is my job." She said, "I work for a representative in the Texas legislature, and I'm in charge of constituent services. And we get phone calls from time to time, and constituents will say, my insurance company is doing the following to not give me the coverage that I bought in my health insurance policy." And she said, I always ask what have they done already, and I make sure that they've taken the initial steps themselves, because she said if they haven't taken those steps themselves, it's harder for us to really be helpful. But once they have, she said, it's a pleasure for me to call the insurance company and basically say, what are you doing to my constituent, and why are you standing in the way? And she said, I usually get results favoring the constituent within a day or two. So I was really excited to hear that. I, by the way, heard the same thing from my representative in the Illinois legislature. And one last thing, when this woman got done with her remarks, I asked her if she would let me take a short video of her describing how her job works, and she agreed, and that video is on the website. So if you're interested, you might want to check that out. So just to hit a couple of other small points, and then let's open it up for questions. So you can file a regulator complaint. That's what I referred to on the page, the government support page. Formal appeals can be filed as well, and formal appeals are legalistic, and it's really important to follow the I'll say the procedure that's identified in the policy, and to include all the information. And we provide some information on the website about what the key elements of a strong appeal would be. We don't provide a template for appeals because at the end of the day, that's a legal document, and that would be providing legal advice that we are just not competent to do. But I think the resources on the website about what elements should be in a formal appeal might very well be helpful. So just to wrap up before we open it up for questions, I hope what has been made clear is that your reasonable health insurance expectations are just that. They're reasonable. They're not remarkable, and it shouldn't be a big fight, and it shouldn't be something that requires you to become an expert in health insurance law. They're just reasonable expectations that an insurance company should be providing you. Second, that we are providing on our website encouragement and the resources to back it up, resources you can use right away without any special training. Medical necessity letters are a really effective way for clinicians to document their authority and their competence about a patient's care and what the insurance company should cover. that there are plenty of resources available to you to help friends and family, government, so regulators and elected officials. I didn't mention employers, but it could be that that your employer can be helpful too. So if your health insurance is through work, it could be that someone in the human resources or benefits department might be helpful to you. Sometimes that can be uncomfortable, so it's not necessarily appropriate in every case, but it's certainly a resource that that can be helpful for some. So that's the end of my prepared remarks. I certainly welcome emails afterwards with any questions you might have. And if you're so inclined, I'd certainly welcome your using the QR code to just complete a very brief survey about the presentation. And I guess, Elaine, if you're okay, I'd certainly welcome any questions or discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Joe. And certainly anyone, you're welcome to either place your questions in the chat, which I'll be monitoring, or you're welcome to come off mute and ask Joe yourself. Maybe while they're thinking of that, I'll just say first, Joe, I took a lot of notes. But, you know, just a couple things I wrote down, maybe a couple of quotes that you said, such as leveling the playing field, you know, not for you all to step in as Cover My Mental Health, but just like you said, leveling the playing field and letting us know as a consumer, or in some cases as a clinician who would be, you know, writing up these notes and determining medical necessity, just what some of our options are. Because I think the instinct can be, and maybe this is different in 2025, but the instinct has always been, oh, if the insurance company says this is the gospel, then it must be. Or if, you know, the clinician, you know, they surely know everything that they need to have in a note to get me what I need. And it's not that someone is trying to necessarily pull the wool over your eyes. It's just, they just may not know what they don't know. So I think that's why it's so crucial for us to hear what you have to say, and why it's so valuable that through your altruism, through your experience, you're sharing these obstacles that you overcame, and not just sharing the spoken word, but here's a template. Here's, you know, some verbiage that's going to be helpful. Here's, you know, reach out to the folks who represent the constituent, and on and on. And you just have compiled so many wonderful resources that people can use that are going to be so helpful, because, you know, for some, they may still be able to get their care despite these obstacles, but for others, they can't. And it can truly mean the difference between getting the care that is, in fact, medically necessary and not. So I just thank you for not only speaking with us today, but all the other advocacy work that you do around the country to make sure people know what options they have, leveling that playing field, and empowering us as the consumer or the clinician to be able to help. So anyway, those are some of my initial thoughts. But I'll stop talking here in case anyone has any other questions.
No, thank you. I want to share one anecdote. So a friend of mine was going in to see her psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist recommended a course of treatment, and with another clinician, and she said, well, do you think that's going to be covered by insurance, or asked some question about it? And he said, well, you know, good luck with that. And so she told me that, and I said, okay, so that's an opportunity, because clinicians should never ever say good luck with that.
Right.
It's unfortunate, but the reality is clinicians are, as I said, the clinicians are as discouraged sometimes as patients, because they've I'll say fought the fight and been worn down. But it's not. This doesn't need to be a fight. This is just it's very common sense, fact based. Here's here's a document of what the course of treatment should be based on facts, right? Based on common sense. That's really all it should be. And I'll say the good news is we know it works.
Absolutely. And the examples that you shared and many more that are on your website, I'll definitely direct folks again to your website, covermymentalhealth.org. And as well, you had put your contact information on there. And I'll share personally, I reached out to you on LinkedIn after I saw you on a meeting and you were very responsive. So, anyone who is looking for some help, certainly going to the website first, because so much of the information is already there. You've made it so easy for folks to be able to access that. But just knowing that, no kidding, Joe truly is here to help and is very responsive, and we thank you for that. So already.
Thanks for those kind words.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so far I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. I'll just again pause for a few more seconds in case anyone wants to come off mute and ask a question. We'll hang out for just a moment there.
So maybe while we're waiting, I'll mention this. So Mental Health America and affiliates have been unbelievably collaborative with Cover My Mental Health at a national level and at an affiliate level. And one of the things I find, I'll say, particularly interesting and I'll say different from other advocacy organizations sometimes, is that Mental Health America affiliates, I don't know if it's true for Spartanburg County, but look to serve members of the community involved in various, I'll say, various parts of the overall ecosystem. So it's patients, it's families, it's clinicians, and others. And we absolutely welcome opportunities to present to clinicians. I'll be in Cincinnati next week presenting at the National Network of Depression Centers, which is a group of about 40 different clinical organizations, some private hospitals, some teaching hospitals, all focused, I'll say, on depression, but inevitably it's not just depression. And those, to the extent that that any of you on the call have connections with, or maybe if you are clinicians, those are opportunities to present our resources that can be continuing education or continuing medical education accredited, and we certainly like to do that to be encouraging, right?
Absolutely. And hopefully folks will take advantage of that, and certainly appreciate the kind words for Mental Health America and affiliates like ourselves. So thank you. Well,
Absolutely.
all right. With just our last couple of moments here, I just want to say thank you again, Joe, just for your time, your expertise, your altruism, your advocacy, and everything in between. It's so appreciated. And we know that for the folks who are on the call today, and then as well for the folks who will see the recording after that, they're going to get so much from it. And maybe right now they're thinking, gosh, I don't need this right now in my life, but at the time that they do, when they need it most, they're going to know it's available. They're going to remember, oh, that's what Joe was talking about. And they're going to be so much better prepared and equipped for that. So thank you. And at this time, just
Wonderful.
With our last couple, absolutely. With our last couple of minutes, I just have a couple of slides. So Joe, I'm going to share my screen. And you had mentioned continuing education, Joe. We have that available for today for folks who are interested. You'll see a QR code on your screen now that shows you how you're able to do that. Just $15 for the CE through that donation there. So we thank you for that. Helps us to be able to put on these offerings and get folks who are very knowledgeable in their various topics, just like covermymentalhealth.org. And I definitely want to take this moment to shout out our sponsors. So our Master Gardener, Susan Lee Therapy, Susan Lee LLC, as well our Gardeners, Spartanburg Regional, Regenesis Healthcare, our Cultivators, Carolina Center for Behavioral Health, LifeStance Health, and our Seed Sowers, the Forester Center, and Connect. Our next educational series is going to be on November 13th, again, from the 12 to 1 hours. So hopefully while you're eating lunch, you can be on with us. It's going to be on growing up online, how social media shapes today's youth with Morgan Strickland. She'll be presenting. So we're definitely excited for that one. That one's hybrid. You can join us in person at the Mary Black Foundation or online via Zoom. Registration is available for both on our website. And then what we're particularly excited about is on October 22nd is our 10th annual symposium. I see that my QR code is not loaded, unfortunately, but all this information is always available on our website. So our 10th annual symposium, October 22nd, once again at the Piedmont Club. There will be 5 units of continuing education available and on a variety of topics, menopause and mental health, serious mental illness, clinical documentation, equine therapy, and the autism spectrum disorder. So we're really excited for that. There are group and student discounts available for those as well. And then one kind of final plug is for our symposium awards. We're fortunate that there are so many people within the Spartanburg community who are doing excellent work of educating, they're raising awareness, they're reducing stigma, and we are just so fortunate to be able to recognize a variety of folks. You'll see on the screen here, folks that were recognized at last year's symposium. So we do have a Lifetime Achievement Award, a mental health clinical advocate, mental health community advocate, a youth and a young adult advocate, and then new this year is the Corporate Partner Award. So with a corporate partner, it doesn't necessarily have to be someone who's already engaged in the mental health sphere, but it could be another community partner who encourages positive mental health for their employees and the community at large. So with that, I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen. That's all I have for everyone. I just, again, thank you to Joe for your presentation, your wonderful information. Thank you to Lakeisha and the Spartanburg County Foundation for sponsoring today's presentation. And we just thank you all who have joined with us and all who will be watching this after or engaging with us on social media through our newsletter and all those variety of ways. So thank you all.